Okay, this video is the second part of the history of Joseph Stalin, dictator of the Soviet Union. You need to have the following ready for this video. Please open your history book to page 278, and you should have your notes too that were attached to the assignment. If you can't keep up with me and do the notes as I'm talking, that's fine, because you have all of the blanks in the PowerPoint that I also attached, and I also attached it as a PDF to make it easy for everybody. So, I remember when we did the Great Depression videos that I said that they were depressing. Well, this video is also going to be very dark, and we are going to see what Stalin does when he gets power, and it's not a pretty story. Warning. Okay, so we are on part 2, Stalin's rule. So Stalin, when he came to power, was not happy with the fact that all of Russia, most of it, was an agricultural economy. An agricultural economy, that just means everybody had farms. There were lots of small farms all over the country, and that's how people made their living. Well, Stalin didn't like that. He wanted the country to have more industry and to become more powerful. So he instituted several 5-year plans. He wanted the Soviet Union to become more like other advanced countries. So these 5-year plans had people working very hard to build up industry in the Soviet Union. And this is just a picture of a poster from that time promoting the 5-year plans. And this is what it says in Russian. The arithmetic of an industrial financial counterplan plus the enthusiasm of workers. The Soviet poster promoting the first 5-year plan in 1931. All right, not only did he want the people not to do as much farming and to have more industry, he decided, remember, communism, the government controls everything. So Stalin said, I'm going to take over all of these small farms and I'm going to combine them into a bunch of big farms. And all these farms will be run by the government and we'll be able to make more, be able to have more food. It's going to be a great idea. Well, as you can imagine, the farmers, some of whom had had these farms, their great-grandfathers had them, then their grandfather, then their father, then them, they were not interested in Stalin coming to their farm and taking it from them and combining it with other farms. They were not happy about this at all. And some of them decided, no, he's not getting my farm. So they set all of their property on fire as defiance against Stalin. Now, this was not a good idea because Stalin didn't care that they didn't like his plan. He sent soldiers, arrested them at gunpoint, and sent them into exile, which means sent them away from their homes. Many people ended up in prison work camps, and many of these were in Siberia, in that really cold area of the Soviet Union near the North Pole. And as many as 10 million people, it's hard to even imagine this, starved to death because of Stalin's decision about collective farms. The first picture is a newspaper article from a newspaper in Chicago. You can see the heading, 6 million perish in Soviet famine. Over here, this is what we call propaganda, which is when the government takes pictures to try to convince people of something. So this picture is trying to convince you that these people love the collective farm and they can't wait to go out and work on that farm for Stalin. So that's called propaganda, trying to make people believe that something is true. So we see that Stalin takes things over. He does not care about human life. If you don't agree with him, he just kills you or throws you in prison. And he's in control. Like I said, this is a very dark time for the people of the Soviet Union, a very dark time in history. So, as you can probably imagine, there is very low morale. People, the plan worked in that more industry started happening. They started building factories, and there was more industry. But many people suffered because the working conditions were so harsh. And people even died because they were forced to work so hard. I know sometimes we feel like we have to work hard, but none of us have ever worked so hard that we died from it. I can't even imagine what that would be like. And you couldn't disagree. We're so used to it in America having freedom. We can disagree with our government if we don't like it. We can protest, we can write letters, we can sign petitions, we can talk to people about how we feel. Not in Stalin's Russia. You could not disagree. And if they found out you were disagreeing or saying anything against Stalin, you would be sent to prison or you would be killed. So even though there was more industry, the morale among the people was very low. And you can think about all the people that were starving to death. That would lower your morale a lot too. Okay, censorship. Now some of you might know what the word censorships or what the word censor means. It's kind of like our vocabulary word from Corrie ten Boom, banned. Okay, so censorship is when the writers, the artists, and the musicians have their work suppressed, like they can't publish it at all, or it's altered, they change it, or it's deleted. Nope, like you would delete something from your computer, because it does not agree with the ideas of whoever is in control. So we're talking about magazines, newspapers, all kinds of art, all of the music in the country. Every artist had to make all of their work agree with Stalin and his ideas. If not, they couldn't publish it, they couldn't write the music, they couldn't make the art. We call this censorship. Stalin allowed nothing that didn't support his ideas. If your ideas were against his, you would not get published. So, this is an example of 10 books that were banned in the Soviet Union during Stalin's rule. Now, some of these your parents might recognize more than you do, but maybe a few of them were familiar. The ones that I recognized were Robinson Crusoe, Animal Farm, Dr. Zhivago. Alexander Solzhenitsyn was a famous Russian Christian who wrote about all the terrible things happening in Russia. So this is a sampling of some of the books that were banned, and the library, Stalin actually had people pile up all the books and just burn them. If any book did not agree with his philosophy, it was burned. You couldn't even see it anymore. This is an example of some of the art that was created while Stalin was in rule. And again, we would call this propaganda, where the artist is glorifying and making Stalin look like a great hero. So we have Stalin holding the little baby, and the little baby is holding the flag, and he has flowers, and Stalin looks like a nice, kind grandfather who loves the children. Not true. This is just propaganda to make you think that Stalin is a kind, loving man. Over here again, we've got Stalin. He's showing that he loves the children. They're showing him pictures. One of them's showing him a toy airplane. He loves kids. He's kind. So this is propaganda for people to look at so that they will believe a specific thing about Stalin. Now, also, the music of the time had to reflect how great Stalin was, or nobody could write any other kind of music. So I'm going to play you a little bit of a song that was written at this time. And you're going to look at the bottom because it has subtitles. So you can see what are the words of this song that were written about Stalin. Here we go. Okay, I'm not going to play the whole thing for you, so you kind of get the idea. They're singing the song glorifying Stalin. Stalin's will is with us. This is a joyful time. Now, obviously, this is not true at all based on what we've been learning, but the musicians had no choice. Either they were going to write songs that glorified Stalin, or they weren't going to write any songs at all. And for many of them, that's how they made money so they could eat and support their families. So they were stuck with writing songs about Stalin. Okay, back to our PowerPoint. All right, so you might have said, wow, Mrs. Harshaw, Stalin, wow, he did some really terrible things. And yes, he did. But unfortunately, it gets worse even than that. Religious persecution. Stalin was an atheist who did not believe in God. And you might say, wait a minute, he went to a seminary and he was training to become a priest in the Russian Orthodox Church. That's the same question that I had. How can you go from studying in a religious college for years to becoming an atheist? So I did a little bit of research, and as far as I can tell, Stalin read the book by Darwin, Origin of Species, all about evolution, and he came to believe in evolution and that there was no God. Now, according to different accounts that I have read, he still did read the Bible at times. He had a Bible even when he was the dictator, but he denied the existence of God, which shows you that you can learn all about God and know everything about the Bible and not be a Christian. That's exactly what happened with Stalin. He studied the Bible. He was in that college for 5 years. But it was in his head, but it never moved to his heart. He never accepted Christ. And eventually he denied Christ completely. Well, not only did he decide he was an atheist, he closed and destroyed churches of all religions, and he arrested and he killed Christians. This picture is a picture of a church that Stalin's men are literally bombing. They're blowing it up. Now, I'm going to show you a video about some of the religious persecution. They're going to be interviewing a Russian Orthodox priest, and he's going to talk about some of the things that happened. Now you're going to see he's wearing like a really fancy kind of priest garment in the Russian Orthodox Church. That's what the priest dressed like. So it looks a little strange to us, but in their tradition, that's what the priest looks like. Okay. So here we go. Religious persecution. This is a picture of a destroyed church.
It started right after the revolution. Lenin signed a decree of separation state and the church, and they started to persecute leaders of the church, bishops and priests, and also destroying the churches.
And here's a picture of them literally blowing up the church.
Priests were against this, acts of vandalism, so they were arrested, and just arrested, put to prison, or many executed, just killed, and especially in 1937, thousands of priests were killed, or lay people, without trial. they wanted to control, life of the church, to wipe out the church in the future. And even Khrushchev, he said, like in 80s, there will be no, like will be last priest, I will show you on TV. This is what Khrushchev said. So they were thinking that this ideology of atheistic eliminate faith, and slowly it will come to the end. And those who were working like teachers or maybe doctors, they cannot go openly to the church because then they will be fired from their work. And then if somebody saw that you were in the church, next day somebody reported it, like in school or in college or whatever, and then it will be trouble, for those students or pupils of school, who came. The authorities tried to prevent kids coming to the church. And for example, we had midnight services. So there were like cordons of like militaries and like police. Don't allow youth come to the church. When they see youth coming, no, go back. They allowed only older people, like older women, come. But no kids. Actually, my father, he was a priest, Orthodox priest. And he also had such a kind of pressure from authorities. Once he was stopped by like people from security, and they took him, and for a couple of days they kept him, didn't let him to sleep. My mother, his wife, didn't know where he was, and tried to push on him that he cooperate with them, and reported everything what he hears. He refused to do it, and he was very afraid after that. So it was a real cross for those priests who wanted to be faithful to God and to be at Soviet time. It was not easy at all.
Okay, so when you look at that video and you see not only did they destroy the churches, they tortured the leaders of the churches. They would not allow kids to go into any church at all. Sometimes they would still let the older people go to church. They wouldn't let the kids go at all. And they tried to get the priests to spy on people. They would arrest people. If you were like a teacher and you went to church, they would arrest you. So there was a huge amount of religious persecution starting with Lenin, and then Stalin just continued it. Then just when you think, wow, Mrs. Marshall, this is really horrible. Well, even more horrible things happened, unfortunately. There was something that later became called the Great Purge. Stalin was paranoid, and he wanted to get rid of anybody who he felt like was a threat to him, threat to his authority. So he would arrest people. A lot of times, false charges. He just made something up and arrested them. Over 1.5 million people were killed in 4 years from this Great Purge. And the ones that weren't killed, some of them were taken in for questioning, tortured, and just put in prison. And sometimes they didn't even know what the charge was. Just got thrown into prison because you didn't agree with Stalin. He wanted everyone to spy for him. He encouraged everybody to tell on each other, even family members, neighbors. If somebody is doing something against his government, tell on them. And it was a culture where people were terrified and afraid to say or do anything for fear that they would be imprisoned, captured, killed. This was known as the Great Purge. And I have one more short video to show you about the Great Purge.
The Great Purge was a political repression in the Soviet Union which happened from 1936 to 1938. After the Bolshevik Revolution, Lenin came into power, but after his death many others wanted to take this power. Joseph Stalin managed to take this position with authority, intimidation, and removing some important members from key positions. In the next years, a massive industrialization started, but it was made with forced actions too. Because of these actions, which were made by force, there was created some opposition against Stalin in factories, in the party, and even in military. Many were not so okay with his way to rule. By the mid-1930s, Stalin believed anyone with ties to the Bolshevik or Lenin's government was a threat to his leadership and needed to go. In the next years, Joseph Stalin wanted to eliminate some members of the Communist Party and anyone else he considered a threat to his regime. The killing and imprisonment started with members of Bolshevik Party, political officials and military members. The purge expanded to peasants, ethnic minorities, intellects, writers or others which were considered by Stalin enemies of the people. Believing that even the high officers from the army are planning a coup, more than 30,000 members of Red Army were executed. Also many high-rank officers like generals and admirals were executed or sent to Gulag. These actions made the regime stronger without any possible inner enemies, but it made the country and the army weaker in case of war. For example, the Soviets suffered lots of casualties and high defeats during the German invasion of Soviet Union for many reasons, but the Great Purge and the new unexperienced officers were part of this. It's believed that more than 750,000 people were executed during the Great Purge, and more than 1 million were sent to forced labor camps known as gulags.
Okay. That was just a little bit more information about the Great Purge. And basically Stalin consolidating and making himself stronger by getting rid of anybody that disagreed with him. Okay, so as I told you, this is not a pretty story. And it also explains more about why communism is not a good system. Some of it might sound good, especially to people who are poor and oppressed. We're all going to be equal. We're all going to get the same pay. It'll be a classless society. Workers will finally get what they need. Well, that part of it might have sounded good to people, but the ultimate problem with communism is that the person in charge is in control of everything. They're in control of all the business. They're in control of all the money. They make all of the decisions. And as you get older and study more and more history, you will see that communist leaders use their power to hurt and harm their people. They use their people in order to make their country stronger, in order to make money, like Stalin. He wanted to build industry, but he didn't even care if he worked people to death, just so he could get what he wanted. And so we see that communism as a political system does not work for people at all. And communism does not value people. The Bible tells us that everyone has value and that we are all created in the image of God. Well, in the system of communism, that is not true at all. A person's life is of no value if you do not contribute to the communist ideal of making the country stronger. You are eliminated. We've seen this, hundreds, thousands, millions of people just eliminated. You don't agree with me, then you're eliminated. So communism is against the Bible. Also, we talked about everybody making the same amount of money, everything owned by the government. Now, when you have a job, when you get older, I have a job, my kids have jobs, you work at your job and then you earn a paycheck for it. And that money that you earn is your money. So you're motivated. Well, if I do a good job, I'm going to earn money. If I do a really good job, I might get a promotion. If I'm really doing well, I might rise in my company. I might get a position that has more leadership. I might be able to manage other people. I might, if I start my own business, I might have a successful business that I start myself. So you are motivated because it's yours. Everything that you're doing, you get a benefit from it. But in communism, you go to work, the business doesn't belong to you. You're not going to rise and get benefit. And everybody else is going to make the same amount of money as you. So if somebody else isn't working as hard as you, yeah, they're going to get the same paycheck you do. So as you can imagine, this is going to, like we said in the video, low morale. Okay, it's like, well, why should I bother working hard? I'm not going to make any more money. I'm not going to get a raise. Nobody's going to care. My government doesn't care. I have to do everything they say or else I'm eliminated. So it just creates an attitude in people where, well, why should I care? Why should I work hard? There's no reason to care. So communism, the person at the top is the most powerful, and we see with Joseph Stalin that this power he used in vicious, evil, murderous ways. And the people at the bottom in communism, the workers, they are at the mercy of the leader. So I hope from this video you can start to understand why communism doesn't work. And mainly it's because of sin. Okay, we all have sin in our hearts, and we all have a sin nature. We're not going to choose the right thing. It's easy for any human being to be pulled away from what is right and to make wrong choices. When you're given a huge amount of power like Stalin, it is even easier to use your power to just get what you want and not worry about anybody else. Well, your assignment for today is to read pages 278 to 280. And these pages are what we discussed today in the video. Then there'll be some questions on the LMS quiz for today, just to make sure you watched the video and you paid attention and you know what's happening. You can use your notes as much as you need to. You can refer to this video as much as you need to. And there's PowerPoint and a PDF attached as well. All right, that is all for today, and I will see you next time.